Stop lighting money on fire every time you fill up. You've heard it all before. Premium is always better. All gas is the same. Fill up in the morning for more fuel. These lines sound smart, but they're quietly draining your wallet and beating up your engine. And the fuel industry is perfectly fine with you believing them. After years of watching drivers fall for bad advice, lazy myths, and clever marketing, I'm breaking down the 10 surprising truths about fuel myths nobody tells you. Stick till the end, because number 1 is the granddaddy conspiracy theory that just refuses to die. Let's get into it. Myth number 10. All gasoline is basically the same. A lot of people think gasoline is like bottled water. As long as it's clear and the pump works, it's all identical. The logic sounds simple. If all gas has to meet government standards, then the cheapest stuff in the pricey premium brand must be the same thing. But the truth hidden in the fine print is that while the base gasoline coming out of the refinery can be similar, the additive package each company blends in is what actually separates cheap fuel from fuel that protects your engine. The bare minimum detergent requirement, set in the mid-90s, was designed for engines that didn't have high-pressure direct injection, tiny turbochargers, or ultra-fine injectors. When you buy the cheapest non-top-tier fuel, you're often getting enough detergent to avoid failing a regulation test. And that's it. Over time, those low detergent levels allow sticky carbon deposits to build up on intake valves, injectors, and piston crowns, messing with the air-fuel mixture, causing rough idle, loss of power, and worse, fuel economy. That's why major automakers banded together to create the top-tier standard, which requires much stronger detergent doses and has been shown in testing to massively reduce deposit formation compared to bargain fuel. So yes, all gasoline has to meet the same basic spec to be legally solid. But if you think that means all gas is the same, your engine will quietly collect gunk until one day it starts misfiring, and your mechanic happily tells you that you had just bad gas for years. Myth number 9. Premium gas gives better performance in any car. Few myths are as profitable as this one. You pull up to the pump, you see 3 buttons, and instinctively feel like the most expensive one must be the good stuff. The fuel companies call it premium. The nozzle has a shiny label, and somewhere in your brain, you picture race cars and high-performance engines. But the truth is brutally simple. If your car's engine is not designed or calibrated to require high octane, premium fuel does nothing for your horsepower, torque, or fuel economy. The octane rating is not a magic power level. It's just a measure of how resistant the fuel is to pre-ignition and knock in high compression or boosted engines. When you put 91 or 93 in a car engineered for 87, there's no hidden map inside the ECU that suddenly unlocks extra power. There's nothing for that extra octane to do. Modern knock sensors will pull timing if the fuel quality is too low in a high-performance engine. So if your vehicle recommends or requires premium, using it avoids loss of performance. But if your car only requires regular and never knocks, filling it with premium simply adds cost, not performance. Drivers often think the car feels smoother after paying more, but that's usually a placebo backed by marketing, not physics. Over a year of unnecessary premium fill-ups, you can easily burn hundreds of extra dollars that could have gone into maintenance that actually improves performance, while the fuel companies thank you for your generous donation. Myth number 8. Filling up in the morning gives you more gas. This one sounds clever enough to be true, which is why it keeps spreading. The story goes like this. Gasoline expands when it's warm and contracts when it's cold. So if you fill up early in the morning when it's cooler outside, you supposedly get denser fuel and more energy for the same price. But the truth is, this trick completely ignores how gas stations are built. The fuel you're buying isn't sitting in a metal tank baking in the sun. It's stored deep underground where the temperature barely changes throughout the day. Whether it's morning, afternoon, or evening, the fuel temperature in those underground tanks stays relatively stable. On top of that, modern pumps are calibrated and regularly inspected to accurately dispense by volume. And in many places, systems are designed to compensate for minor temperature variations. So consumers aren't cheated. That means the idea that you can beat the system by timing your fill-ups to the coldest hour is mostly a myth, left over from a misunderstanding of thermal expansion in open tanks, not underground commercial storage. You might get a quieter station and a shorter line at 6 a.m., but you're not sneaking a few extra cents of gasoline past some clueless oil giant. The system was designed specifically to prevent that kind of trick from working in the first place. Myth number 7. You should never let your tank go below a quarter full. Almost every driver has been warned at some point. Never let your tank go below a quarter. You'll suck up all the dirt from the bottom and ruin the pump. It sounds serious, and it came from a time when fuel systems really were more primitive. But modern tanks, pumps, and filters don't behave the way this myth assumes. In reality, The fuel pickup line has always been near the bottom of the tank. Whether you have a full tank or are nearly empty, you're drawing from the same area. Any sediment present will be sucked in regardless of fuel level and then caught by the fuel filter, which is designed for exactly that. The more valid concern today is that the electric fuel pump relies on gasoline for cooling and lubrication. When you constantly drive with the low fuel light on and the pump partly exposed, it can overheat and wear out faster. That's where a grain of truth survived inside outdated advice. The old never below 1/4 rule turned into sort of a superstition, but what really matters is avoiding the habit of running on fumes every day, not occasionally dipping under a quarter. Modern plastic tanks don't rust like old metal ones. Filtration is better, and pumps are built sturdier, so you don't need to panic the moment the gauge dips past 1/4. Just don't treat the low fuel warning as a challenge to see how far you can push it, unless you enjoy buying new fuel pumps and calling roadside assistance. Myth number 6. Higher octane cleans your engine. If there's one myth that shows how powerful marketing language is, it's this one. People see premium, super, or ultra with a bigger octane number and automatically link that to cleaner, better running engines. The fuel companies love to blur the lines by advertising premium as our best gasoline, which makes people assume that the number on the pump is somehow tied to cleaning ability. But the truth is, that octane rating has nothing to do with cleaning power. It only measures knock resistance. An 87 octane fuel and a 93 octane fuel can have identical detergent levels, or in some cases, the regular grade might even have more detergents depending on the brand and blend. The compounds that actually keep injectors and valves clean are specific detergent additives, mixed in at the terminal, and they're governed by completely separate standards like top-tier certification, not by the octane label. Believing that higher octane cleans the engine leads to a dangerous kind of laziness. Drivers think they're taking care of their car by paying for premium and then skipping real maintenance, like using quality fuel consistently, cleaning injectors when needed, and addressing carbon buildup on intake valves in direct injected engines. If your car doesn't need high octane for knock protection, you're paying extra for a property your engine never uses, while the cleaning job is either handled or neglected by the detergent package. That has nothing to do with that bigger number on the pump. Myth number 5. Gasoline lasts forever in your tank. A lot of people treat fuel like it's a permanent chemical, sitting in the tank unchanged for months or years until they happen to drive again. In reality, gasoline is a complex blend of volatile hydrocarbons that start to break down surprisingly quickly once they're exposed to air and normal temperature variations. Over time, usually in the 3 to 6 months range for a car tank, those lighter components evaporate. Oxygen reacts with the remaining fuel, and you begin to form sticky gums and varnishes. The truth is that this degraded fuel can clog injectors, foul fuel pumps, and cause hard starts, rough running, and reduced power, especially in engines that already have tight tolerances like modern direct injection designs. This is why people who own motorcycles, lawn equipment, generators, or weekend toys often talk about bad gas after sitting a season or two without fuel stabilizer. The fuel didn't magically become evil, it just oxidized, separated, and left behind a mix that no longer burns cleanly or consistently. If you drive your car regularly, you're likely cycling fuel fast enough for this not to matter. But if you let a chemical sit for long periods with a nearly full tank, you're building a little chemistry experiment under the rear seat. Proper storage means either draining the system using a stabilizer designed for long-term storage, or at least running the engine regularly enough to refresh the fuel before it crosses the line from usable to varnish-forming sludge. Myth number 4. Gas stations dilute fuel with water to cheat customers. This is the kind of myth that sounds juicy enough to share but falls apart the second you think about how businesses and engines actually work. The story claims that shady stations secretly mix water into their gasoline to stretch supply and boost profit, turning every fill-up into a scam. The reality is that adding water to gasoline intentionally would destroy engines, trigger immediate complaints, and invite regulators to shut down the station almost overnight. Water and gasoline don't mix. Water sinks to the bottom of the tank, and when a car pulls in that contaminated layer, engines misfire, stall, and potentially suffer serious damage. No station that wants to stay in business is going to risk customers posting videos of their car dying at the pump. Where this myth finds a tiny foothold in reality is in tank maintenance. Underground storage tanks can develop leaks, condensation, or poor seals over time. When they're not properly inspected and maintained, underground water and moisture can get in, and water can accumulate at the bottom. The pump's pickup can then occasionally draw a sludge of that water into your vehicle. That isn't deliberate fraud, it's negligence. And it's exactly why reputable chains invest in regular tank inspections and monitoring systems. If drivers report widespread issues after filling up, investigators can sample the station's tanks. And if they find contamination, the station can be held liable for damage. So the idea of widespread secret water dilution schemes is more internet urban legend than reality. But the reason you should still be selective is that a station that skimps on maintenance is more likely to have that kind of contamination in the first place. Myth number 3, mixing gas brands harms your engine. Some drivers are fiercely loyal to one brand and believe that mixing fuels, say half a tank from brand A and half from brand B, will somehow confuse the engine or create a bad chemical reaction. In reality, every gallon of gasoline sold at a legal pump has to meet compatibility standards, and the base fuel often comes from the exact same regional pipelines or refineries before different companies add their specific additive packages. The truth is that your engine doesn't know or care that yesterday's fill-up was Shell and today's is Chevron or Costco. It only cares about basic properties like octane, volatility, and detergent level, all of which must stay within strict ranges to be sold. In many regions, tankers from different brands load from the same terminal and diverge only when the additive package is injected along the way to the respective stations. Once that fuel is in your tank and mixed, it forms a perfectly fine blend that still meets and exceeds the minimum standards. In fact, if you've been using a non-top tier brand with minimal detergents and then you suddenly switch to a top tier fuel, that mix can actually start reducing deposits over time rather than causing any harm. So while it's smart to choose good brands overall, there's no need to panic or avoid topping off at a different station when it's convenient. The idea that your engine needs a single loyalty brand to stay healthy is more superstition than science. Myth number 2, you get better gas mileage with a full tank. This myth typically originates from drivers who claim their car runs smoother or goes farther when the tank is topped off. They might notice the gauge dropping more slowly at first and assume that somehow the engine is working more efficiently with a full tank. But if you strip away perception and roll in physics, you find the opposite. The more fuel you carry, the heavier the vehicle becomes, and the more energy it takes to move it. Gasoline weighs roughly 6 pounds per gallon, so a 15-gallon tank filled to the brim adds around 90 pounds compared to running near empty. That's like driving everywhere with an extra adult permanently sitting in the car. Over time and distance, that additional mass means the engine has to work slightly harder to accelerate, climb hills, and overcome rolling resistance, which technically reduces fuel economy rather than increasing it. The reason a full tank feels like it lasts longer is psychological. The gauge moves slowly at the top because of how the sender units and gauge calibrations are designed, not because the fuel itself is magically more efficient in those first few gallons. Real-world hypermilers who chase every bit of efficiency don't keep their tanks full. They often run them in the middle range to balance refueling frequency with weight reduction. The real best practice is simply to refuel before you regularly hit the low fuel warning for pump health, not to keep the tank jammed full under the illusion that you're squeezing extra mileage out of thin air. Myth number 1, oil companies' suppressed secret 100 miles per gallon carburetors. This is the ultimate garage story, the one that shows up in late-night conversations in conspiracy forums. An inventor supposedly built a miraculous carburetor that could make a big V8 sip fuel at 100 miles per gallon, only for oil companies to buy the patent and lock it away so they could keep selling more gas. It's a perfect story. Simple villain, simple hero, simple solution. Unfortunately, it collapses the moment you run the numbers. The truth is grounded in the laws of thermodynamics and the chemical energy content of gasoline. Every gallon of gasoline contains a fixed amount of potential energy. Internal combustion engines can only convert a fraction of that energy into useful work due to losses like heat, friction, and incomplete combustion. Even the most advanced gasoline engines today, using direct injection, turbocharging, variable valve timing, and hybrid assistance, struggle to reach around 40% thermal efficiency in ideal conditions. Traditional carbureted engines were far less precise and efficient than modern fuel injection, wasting even more fuel. To get a typical mid-sized car to 100 miles per gallon purely by changing the carburetor, you'd need to violate those physical limits and somehow extract more useful work from the same fuel than the combustion cycle allows, something no clever nozzle or Venturi can do. Real ultra-high MPG concepts use extreme aerodynamics, ultra lightweight construction, low rolling resistance tires, tiny engines, hybrids, or full electric powertrain. That's engineering progress, not a hidden bolt-on miracle. The reason your car doesn't get 100 miles per gallon has far more to do with physics, safety requirements, weight, performance expectations, and costs than with some mythical device locked in a vault under an oil company's headquarters. Most drivers never question what they've been told about fuel. They just keep paying, keep filling, and keep wondering why their car feels rougher and their wallet feels lighter. So if this video helped you see what's actually going on every time you squeeze that pump handle, do me a favor, hit like, subscribe, and share this with one friend who still swears premium makes their Corolla pull harder. Drop a comment telling me which myth you believed before today and what fuel changes you're going to make from now on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.